Welcome to Roundtable Mindset, the podcast where we seek to understand and share different perspectives in order to grow and challenge our own. And we encourage you, our guest, to do the same.
Each week, we will pick a topic to discuss, sharing our own unique thoughts and insights. There will be times when we won't agree, and let's be real, that's probably going to be most of the time, and that's okay. We feel it's important to understand that we can live in this polarized world and still respect one another and even be friends.
Well, hello, and welcome back to Roundtable Mindset. This is Jamie.
And I'm Mahlon.
And we're back for another episode of our enlightening and incredibly insightful podcast where we tackle all kinds of genres and topics to expose the... I don't even know anymore.
I was going to say, are you going to throw award-winning, even though they're our own awards we gave ourselves?
Pat on the back award.
Incredibly thorough podcast, whatever we want to put onto it. That's funny.
Yes, we're just gonna toss it all up. Award winning, best in class. Of our own.
Well, I know we haven't mentioned this in a while, but since you've kind of opened that door, we are in. Just to give a recap to everybody, we're in 18 countries, 162 cities, and we're in all but 12 of the states. So I think that's kind of...
Didn't that go down to 11 states? I feel like we had...
I didn't...
I feel like there was one more state we jumped on board.
Yeah, we had Hawaii come on. No, we had Hawaii come on after I gave those totals. What I forgot to do was include Hawaii. So, yeah. So we actually gained Hawaii, but I didn't count it. So we're still at 12.
Okay. Well, that's...
But I just think that...
See, I'm sorry, but 18 countries blows my mind. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, no, it's crazy. And the countries that we've been in is just, it's kind of unique. I know we've said this before to each other, but it's kind of fun to think. I've never really left the United States, but my voice has, which is kind of crazy to think about. I
don't think that the country I did visit, my voice has been there yet. I think we're still waiting for that one to come on board, so we'll see.
Jamie's like, I'm waiting for my voice to catch up.
Right.
That's funny.
It's a good time.
So what are we talking about today?
Food for thought. Oh, food for thought. That's me, right?
That's right.
I have the food for thought. Yes. So for food for thought today, I have a question for you. Are you ready?
I'm ready for it.
It's going to be good. Okay. If you didn't have to work to earn money, how would you spend your time?
Okay. So just a qualifying statement here, because, I'm an analyst by profession. Is money still a thing, or is money been eradicated from the world when you ask that question?
How does that matter?
Because it does matter to my answer.
Oh, okay. If you didn't have to work to make money. So let's just say you've got investments that are bringing in a regular stream of income, if that's...
Okay.
Does that help?
Yes, it does help. So you're saying money's still there. I have an existing amount of money coming in. I don't need to work. What am I doing with my time?
Right. You won the lottery. You have $43 billion sitting in your bank account, and all of your bills are auto-deducted. So what are you doing?
Is that United States? I'm kidding. So here's what I'm doing. First thing I'm doing is I'm traveling. There is a bucket list of things that I want to go see in the United States as well as outside of the United States, that if I didn't have to work in order to, bring in an income to live off of and to vacation off of, and all those fun things that I'd like to do. Number one thing on my list is I will be traveling. I live, in the current place that I live is great, and I know my kids are established, so I probably wouldn't want to upset that too much too soon. So I would definitely be spending my time traveling as much as I could. I would also probably be buying some separate homes in different locations. Nothing extravagant, probably modest homes that I can, some of my favorite places that I find as I'm traveling just have a little bit of a a modest house there so I can go and stay for an extended period of time as I want to. So that's the first thing that comes to mind for me is traveling.
Where's the first place you would travel to?
Well, that's very interesting because I want to go see three areas of the world are kind of towards the top. I've always wanted to go to Fiji. My wife and I would like to go sit in a grass hut over the ocean and just kind of soak in the sun and just relax. And that place always looks so beautiful. So that's on top of my list. Another one that's top of my list is I've always wanted to go see the pyramids of Egypt and go see that area.
Oh.
So that's been on my bucket list for a while. Although I don't know if it's safe to go travel yet. So it might not matter about the amount of money that you have if it's not a safe place for Americans to go to. But I don't know if that's still true. And then third place, that's just as equally up there, would be I would love to go to Israel. And there's tours you can take where you can go and follow the path that Jesus walked when he was on earth and see some of those sites that are talked about in the Bible. I would love to go to those sites. So I think those are the three top traveling options that I would go to. What about you? If you didn't have to work, what would you do with your time?
This is going to sound ridiculous. If I won the lottery and everything was paid for, I would probably keep doing what I'm doing.
No.
I just keep working.
You don't deserve it.
Volunteer my time and just keep working.
You don't deserve the money. I'm just saying that right now. This is here.
No, I
wait a minute.
Buy the house,
Wait a minute.
buy the cars. I do all the things.
Just a second. This is your. I just love this. This is your. I'm going to say game in air quotes. I have a question for you. If you didn't have to work to make your money, what would you do? Well, I'm going to continue working. Here's what I got to say to that, Jamie. Whatever.
No, here's the thing. Okay, here's the thing. I would probably not work 10 hours a day, 5 days a week, or whatever it is that I'm working at the time. But I definitely would want to continue what I do because it is so rewarding. Like I love what we do. I love my job. I love the people that I work with, and I find so much value and enrichment in the mission of our organization that I would not want to give that up. So I would want to stay involved somehow. So, but as a blessing to the organization who has blessed me so much, I would want to do that on a volunteer basis. So
you would
I told you would like make fun of me.
I'm not making fun of you. I just think how, when I hear people say that, and again, I've said similar things like that. I mean, I work in corporate America, so I love my job. I love what I do, but you better believe that if I won enough money or if I didn't have to work to make my money, I'm out. Like I'm done.
Right.
And here's the thing that I challenge for people, because I've heard that before. Other people are like, I love my job. I would never want to leave, blah, blah. And that's great. That's noble. Is that realistic? I don't know. And here's the funny thing is it's probably not going to happen where you win enough money. Maybe it does. I wish you the best of luck if you play the lottery, but
I don't.
So it's just, it's funny because there's no way to challenge that, because I have a funny feeling if, what was the Powerball that was just won not too long ago, like 1.7 billion?
Some insane amount of money. I know.
So even if you want a fraction of that, it would be interesting, and not to call your character into question here. That's not what I'm doing. But it would be interesting, you including all the people that say, oh, I would continue to work, if you truly would. Or if it would be like, yeah, I said that, but
changed my mind.
Exactly.
Just joking.
I'm going to go sleep in for a while. I don't know.
Well, don't get me wrong. I would probably take a vacation. And I think that would probably be, I think that's how what the difference would be for me is I think I would be more likely and feel more free to take an extended vacation and go experience different things because I would have the financial freedom to do that. You know what I mean? So I do think that it's not like I'm like, okay, nothing is going to change. I'm going to chain myself to my desk at my nonprofit organization that I work for. Right. But I definitely, I guess, no, I wouldn't quit. I just wouldn't. I couldn't. But I would definitely take advantage of that windfall in other ways.
Well, and
be debt free and go do things,
And another thing, I know your question wasn't fixated so much on you won the lottery. I know that was just a means to an example that you had.
Right.
But in the same vein, you may not want to stay in your old life if you win the lottery, because people I hear come out of the woodwork. You have old family members, friends suddenly want handouts. There's backstabbing. So again, you might have the best of intentions, but maybe you have to leave your life because it's no longer conducive for you. I don't know. That'll be interesting to see. I wish you win the lottery so I can see it firsthand, Jamie. I would love to see, what does Jamie really do if she had enough money she didn't have to work?
I love how you're like, challenge, bring it, go buy some lottery tickets, friend.
I want you scratching those scratch tickets and buying those Powerballs, Jamie. That's what I want you to do. No, I'm kidding. But it is, great. After traveling, because I think that there would be a certain amount of time where even as exciting as it would be initially, would probably get stale. And you'd probably be seeing everything. Then what do you do? And I think the beautiful part about if I didn't have to work to generate income and I just had, I was just rich and I had investments or won the lottery, whatever. I think what I really would like to do is stop and really think about what I could do, because even in my current state, I dream with that thought that I still have to work. Yes, I can pretend that I don't, and what would I do? But reality is I have to go to my job tomorrow and I have to get up at a certain time and I have meetings I have to go to. What I like to think about is, here's what I would do being in that world right now. It would be great to be able to be in a place where I didn't have that and then think about, what do I want to do? Because then I think I would dream differently. I would brainstorm differently. I would probably look at options that I don't even consider now because they are so far-fetched. And I think for the first time in my adult life, I probably would exhale.
Oh, well, there's that too, isn't it? That is an interesting thought. If I didn't have to work to earn money, exhaling would be good. I do also, I guess one other thing I was thinking of when you were talking about that too is, let's be real. I would want a podcast a lot. And we could get a private jet so that we could podcast in person every week. So those are two. I mean, we're talking 40 billion in the jackpot for the lottery. That's on the list right there, my friend.
Well, and that's another interesting thought. Suddenly your hobbies could become your new job, right? I mean,
ooh, wait, can we hire someone to edit?
I don't know. I'm going to take a page from your... I like editing. If I was a billionaire, I think I'd still edit my own stuff.
There you go. Well, you would have all the time in the world if you didn't have to work. So that would be okay. Because I think that's probably... the editing stress is the time frame, I think, for me.
Well, it's fun to think about, but what's kind of cool is this food for thought lends very nicely to our main topic that we have, which I'm going to segue into that now.
Segue.
So, I know, I wish there was a segue movie like tooloo, tooloo, tooloo. Okay, so this thing I didn't even know really existed. And I know we were talking in our personal lives off mic, where we were kind of talking about different things to talk about now that we got the Halloween season over. We did those fun episodes, and now we're kind of getting back into our regular topics and conversations. And one of the ones that came up, and I can't remember where I found this or how it triggered in our brains, but the universal basic income, or what's also known as UBI, was something that...
Wait, I didn't know there was an acronym for it.
Yeah, I've learned a lot of stuff in just my limited Googling and trying to figure out what this is. So I think at a high level, if I try to remember where we started stumbling across this, we were talking about universal healthcare and kind of the effects that would have on, society, individuals, businesses. Not to spoil it, but I think that's a future topic coming up, pretty soon. But within that conversation, the universal basic income was also talked about, which I had never heard about. I conceptually, I get it, but Jamie, do you know what a universal basic income is?
I have such a vague general idea, and I'm really excited to learn from all your research today. So hit me.
Okay, so universal basic income. This is I'm gonna boil it down. I have a definition here, but I'm just gonna boil it down. So basically, it is the government pays their citizens, and it doesn't matter. I couldn't find, at least. It doesn't matter your age. It doesn't matter really your occupation. I found some instances where your income plays a factor into how much you get, but it doesn't really play a factor in do you get something or not. So it seems like everybody in the country would have money that would come to them, a basic income, and that would be, how do I say this? If it was enough for you to live on and you didn't need or want for anything else, and that income that the government gives you satisfies your lifestyle, then no other job would be needed. So suddenly your question about if you didn't have to work, what would you do? Although we were kind of going pie in the sky with, oh, we would travel, we would do this, really with this universal basic income, if your basic needs were met and you didn't want to go get a job, you may not be able to travel. You may not be able to go and live on the high life, but you also may not have to work. And what would you fill your days with? So suddenly it's not a matter of you have an endless supply of money, but it's you don't need to work for your money. So the universal basic income is just that. The government pays their citizens a set amount of money, either monthly or annually, for them to have their basic needs met. So that's in a nutshell what that is.
I have so many questions. Well, okay, first of all, does anyone do this?
And so I'm glad you asked. So currently there are no countries that actively have a universal basic income going right now. Now, there have been places that have tried different proof of concepts. I found a couple that have happened here in the United States where they've tested it out on a very small amount of people. The closest things that I could find currently, and I that's as of this recording, is China, Germany, and Canada are all currently looking at ways that they could introduce a UBI into their society, with Canada seeming to be leading the way. The only thing that I found on Canada is that they are taking baby steps to move forward with either a proof of concept or actually to begin giving their citizens this income. Again, I don't have a lot of details of what that means when it says baby steps. To me, I think that's going through regulation. I know that Canada right now is, it sounds like from the article that I was reading, their citizens are either doing quite well for themselves or they are in the poor section of society. The middle class seems to be separating and really kind of dissolving. I don't want to get into why that's happening, and I don't know any more than what I found when I was doing my research. But I just wanted to add that because I think there is a change and a shift within their economy that might be ushering this type of, I don't even know what you call this type of measure to get implemented within Canada.
Well, and what's interesting is I would stick my toe in the water of saying that some of that feels like that's what's happening in America too, that there is, there's a big gap rather than we don't have a real strong middle class anymore. We have one side or the other, because the middle class is what gets hit the hardest with things like inflation and increased grocery prices and, interest rates rising and things like that. But I'm glad, I'm glad to hear. I don't know if that is even appropriate, but what's interesting is I was under the assumption that it would be everyone who works makes the same amount of money. And I think that's totally my American brain, when we talk about things like
socialism. I mean, you hear socialism, that's kind of what comes to mind.
Well, no, Mahlon.
It is.
I mean, like,
everybody makes the same.
no,
Doesn't matter your effort. That's socialism.
I'm talking about like minimum wage and things like that. Like the mindset of minimum wage. That's where I thought it was going, is to say, hey, I guess what's weird to me when I think about that concept is like, how is it not like monopoly money? You know what I mean? Like, why not like just subsidize housing for everyone or something? You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm having a hard time figuring out what the point is in saying, here's a bucket of money every month.
Well, and again, I think as I get going into some more of my research, I think it's going to start playing into some of the questions you have. Because when you just hear, oh, the government's going to give everybody a certain amount of money to live off of, and I've said the words, if it meets your basic needs, then there's no need to work. What this is not intended to do, it's not intended to take the place of you earning income. What it's meant to do is supplement the citizens of that country to help offset and help eradicate poverty. You know, trying to move the lower class up into the middle class. I don't think it's ever meant. In all of my research, it was never like everybody's going to be getting $100,000 a year now from the government, and if you want to work more, you can. But everybody's base level income across the country is $100,000 a year. Nothing like that. What I was finding is anywhere between $500 a month was one of the examples that I'm going to be getting to later. There's another example where there's actually a state in the United States, the state of Alaska, who currently today helps subsidize their citizens. Yeah. And it's
actually, did you know that?
I did not know that. I did not know that until I started researching, because I was like, what are you talking about? Do you know what it's called, Jamie?
I don't know what it's called, but my limited understanding of it is it's because of the cost of getting goods there that they subsidize their citizens with money to help cover some of those higher costs, because getting goods and supplies is so much more expensive there.
Yeah, I don't know why. Again, I didn't want to go I didn't want to go a deep dive on all of these things that I'm finding, because first of all, I wasn't even expecting to find a lot, to be honest. Two, I just wanted to kind of get the breadth of what this meant and if we've ever seen this in the United States. And so I came across the Alaska Permanent Fund, which is what they call it, where they pay each of their citizens a certain amount of money. This is an annual amount. I'm just reading over some of my notes. So this fund is funded by the oil reserves that are in Alaska. So depending on the price of gas, the range that it gave is $1,000 a year for every citizen, all the way up to $2,000 a year. Again, it all fluctuates on the prices of gas. I don't know why. So you probably have, the information that you just shared probably is more than it's not probably, it is more than what I came across. So, but what I found it to be interesting is that we have a version of what I'll call this universal basic income happening today in the United States. And I first started looking at this, I was like, well, this doesn't exist for us. And that's not true. And there's still even another version of this happening within the United States, which I'll get to in a second. But for the Alaska example, you can see that it's never going to be enough for them not to work. And I would argue, what's even the point? Because if you have a family of 5, you're only talking $5,000 to $10,000 a year. Spread that across, to your point, if it's used to help offset the cost of having to go to the grocery store, buy basic goods. Although, $5,000 to $10,000 a year more just being gifted to your family is great, but does it really even offset that price? I don't know. So I started wondering when I saw, this example in particular, I'm like, that's great, but does it really benefit? Does it really do anything for the citizens of Alaska to get this little bit of money?
Maybe it's not because of the higher cost of goods. Maybe it's because it's like profit sharing of their oil. Maybe that, you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, I wish
which is a whole different, Isn't that a different feel though? Like if we're all benefiting from, hey, we all get a benefit from the harvest of oil from the oil fields. That's like a profit sharing thing rather than a, you know what I mean? Does that make?
I do. I don't know. I just don't know. It's just, and I know I'm going to sound very ungrateful. So I was trying to pick my words. I'm just going to say them. It almost feels like thanks, but no thanks. Like I wouldn't notice this money missing, and I don't know if I would notice this money coming to me. And I never want to look, a gift horse in the mouth, but at the same time, how much benefit does that really give? You know
well, let's just to put this in perspective. Let's say you have a family of 5, okay? And you get $10,000 a year because it was a really great year for gas prices. And honestly, these people should be making at least $2,000 a person with as expensive as gas has been recently. But if I do the math, it's $833 a month. So, I mean, $833 could make a dent in utilities, and you know what I'm saying? It's not a ton, but
maybe. And again, it's all free money. I mean, and I have my own stance on free money. That I don't believe there's anything free in this world. Thank you, Mom, for that wisdom. But again, even let's just round it up, $900 a month. If I had $900 a month, yeah, I'd put it towards a bill. It would not change my life. It would make things marginally easier, but it wouldn't like change the way I look at the world, the way that I interact. It wouldn't change me going and still needing my job, earning my money. It wouldn't do anything besides maybe give me a little wiggle room, but maybe that's what it's intended for.
Truthfully, though, I think that right there is a really great example of perspective. Because, if you're looking at that income from someone who makes X amount of bigger dollars than like a single mom with 2 kids who makes X amount of much lower dollars, I just did the math again for me and my 2 kids. If it were just me and my 2 kids as a single mom and it was $2,000 a piece, that would be $500 extra a month. And that would have been groceries. You know what I'm saying? So that would have covered our grocery bill for the month. So that would have made a massive difference for me when it was me and just my 2 kids. So I wonder if that's a perspective thing that for you and in your lifestyle and the way that you live compared to someone who really is living in poverty, that could make a big difference for them. What worries me is that, like, I almost wonder if, like, the big chunk of money is cool, but if it's not like that monthly amount, is it making that difference, or is it helping me go buy a big screen TV at the end of the year? You know what I mean?
Well, and no matter how you get the money, people are going to misuse those funds. And I say misuse. I don't even know if there's strings attached to the money that it comes, to the Alaska residents. I don't know if the government's like, hey, this money is to help offset the cost of goods, to your point, or it says, hey, this is an economic stimulus for the state of Alaska. Do with it with what you want. And then it's intended for them to use it whatever they want to use it on. I will say, though, when I say that this is annually, nowhere does it say that it was a lump sum giving to them. I think it was just they're on an annual basis get anywhere between $1,000 and $2,000, because I also have some examples where it's a monthly amount that does get sent out to each of the citizens.
If you live in Alaska and drop us a line, right? Because I'm curious.
I would like to really know how that works. Okay, I'm going to move on because there's another example. Again, I was impressed to find one in the United States, being Alaska. There's another one in the United States. So in North Carolina, since 1997, there is a tribe, and I did not get the tribe, so that's a whoopsie on me. But there is a tribe that is receiving revenue from a casino, and the casino's on tribal land, and it's been given to every member of the tribe since 1997. And this did say no strings attached. which made me think that in the example of Alaska, there were some strings attached, although I didn't see them. But I'm like, okay, this one explicitly says no strings attached. So I'm reading into this a little bit, but to me, that means no taxes, no, you can only spend half of this so much, or it's an economic stimulus. It's just money given to every member of the tribe, and they can do what they want with it. No questions, no strings. Each person gets an average of $4,000 to $6,000 a year. And again, it doesn't say if it was paid to them annually. It doesn't say if it was paid monthly. It just says $4,000 to $6,000 a year, which is a substantial increase from what we've seen in Alaska. Now, I'm assuming, I know there's probably, Alaska's not a heavily populated state in comparison to its size, but I'm sure it's bigger than the territory that we're talking about in North Carolina. So there's probably less people on this tribe. But I thought that was, $4,000 to $6,000 a year for doing nothing more than being a member of this tribe from revenue from a casino. I thought that was kind of interesting.
That is really interesting, just because I start thinking about that's part of how my concept of like those tribal communities is that that's part of what they do is they take care of each other. They have, they self-govern and do some of those kind of things. And that's, to me, that's an example of how the tribe takes care of their people, is to, build these casinos, have this business, and then redistribute those funds that come in for that purpose. So, I didn't have any, although I guess I would think that would be the concept with most tribes that have casinos attached. Because a lot of them do, don't they? I mean, I think I was in New Mexico, and there was some casinos on, that had tribes attached to them, if I remember right.
Yeah, and I know that's not what you meant, but I don't know if you can say, a stereotype is if every reservation has a casino on it. However, I do know of several casinos that are placed on Indian reservations because there's not as strict laws around, if you put a casino on or private land, or, the government owned land, or even the private sector, there's a lot of hoops you have to go through. My understanding is those hoops are not as many, or maybe there's not as weird loops you have to go through when you have a casino on a reservation, because I don't believe it goes through the regular government, local, state, or federal regulations. It goes through the tribal. Now, I don't have any other information or insight on that. That's just from my understanding, talking with some individuals when I was traveling and actually went to a casino that was on a reservation. You would think though that the reservation would benefit from that somehow. Like if someone's coming to me and saying, "Hey, we'd like to build a casino on your land," sure. Well, I think
this is what we'll accept to do that,
Yeah, I think these reservations are the ones that are putting I don't think someone's coming to them and say, "Hey, we want to put a casino on your reservation." I think the tribal council, or whoever the tribal government is wanting to build a reservation. And so, and again, I'm speculating. I don't know what that process is. But what I thought was really interesting is I don't think this is commonplace, because it gives a very specific location, and it talks about a very specific area of the United States. So it's just saying, like, in this one tribe in North Carolina, they are doing this. And what I found is it kind of gave a little bit of the results they're seeing since they've been doing this. And I wanted to share with them because I think these are going to really hit home for you. Some of them fly in the face of what I would think, and I know I want to get into that conversation with you in just a little bit around, is this even practical? Could the United States, or any country for that matter, institute a universal basic income successfully? And so some of the things that I was going to, this study that they've been doing from North Carolina kind of flies in the face of what I thought the outcome would be. So here's some of the things. Economist, wish I could read that a little bit. Economist, they found that the individuals that are getting this payment on this tribe, it doesn't cause the people to work any less than it would if they had the money. That was one thing.
You mean they won the lottery and kept their job at their nonprofit organization? What?
Well, if their lottery was $4,000 to $6,000 a year.
Okay, so fair.
not 1.7 billion, but okay. It also said that it appears that this UBI, or what I'm calling this version of UBI, led to improved education and mental health. So to me, I don't have any details, but I'm reading into this. Improved education, to me, I took that as post high school, right? Now, if you have this money that's been given to you $4,000 to $6,000 a year since maybe you were born, or maybe you have to hit 13. I don't know what the age in which members of this tribe start getting this money. I assume at birth, but that's me assuming. But if you have that type of money coming in, suddenly to pay for higher education after high school becomes possible, right? Because you now have that money just waiting for you to use for higher education. So that's how I took it when it said it improved education. And the other one, mental health, it reminded me of our food for thought, Jamie, when we said, when I said I would be able to exhale, I'd be able to breathe. I think there's some mental health benefits to that, not having to worry all the time about how do I make ends meet, or maybe how do I afford education after high school. If some of that's taken care of for you, I could see how that could impact your mental health in a positive way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the last bit, which I thought was, and I don't know how you would come to this conclusion, but they said it also decreased addiction and crime.
Okay, you're not sure how what?
I'm not sure how having a $4,000 to $6,000, I'm going to call it stipend, given to you every year by your local tribe leaders would decrease addiction across your tribe and decrease crime.
Well, maybe start talking about that a bit. What do you think it could be? Like, spitball it with me, my friend.
First of all, don't talk down to me like I'm a moron. I'm just saying I'm
not trying. I'm just like, take a minute and think about that. I think it's pretty obvious how, improve mental health because I'm not stressing about how I'm going to make ends meet. Crime going down because I'm not, people aren't snagging things from other people to sell and try and make ends meet. Well, I could see that correlation.
The education and mental health, I'm on board. But the crime and the addiction, because in my mind, if you're an addictive person, I don't care if it's drugs, I don't care if it's alcohol, I don't care if it's gambling. If you have an addicted personality and you have access to more income, left unchecked, my mind goes to, you have the ability to satisfy your addiction more often now because you have this access to this income that you normally don't. So when it said it decreased addiction, I was like, how does having more money decrease addiction? I couldn't see the correlation. And as far as crime goes, again, if you're willing to victimize another human being, steal from them, rob them, whatever it is, to me, having another $4,000 to $6,000 a year, I don't see how that's going to suddenly make people that would normally do that. And I'm sure there's some cases that they are on very hard times, and that's the only thing they think they can do to make ends meet. I would still argue if you knew everybody in your community had $4,000 to $6,000 just sitting around because you have an extra $4,000 to $6,000, if you're the type of person who's going to victimize another person, I don't see why that would stop you from doing it. If nothing else, it might give you a motivator to go around and do more of that victimizing.
Well, I guess, and I don't even know if this is a rabbit hole we want to go down, but I think that is in my opinion, that's a flawed way to look at people. I don't think that people who commit crimes largely, or every person that commits crimes, is like, ooh, committing crime is fun, let's go do it. I'm sure there's those people because there are those people. But I think when people are left in desperate situations, then they do desperate things to meet their basic needs or meet their family's needs. And, as far as the addiction piece goes, if a person is born with an addictive personality, it's not like all of a sudden at 17 it turns on and now I'm an addict. A lot of times that comes from not being able to cope with mental health, not being able to cope with trauma, not being able to cope with, whatever's happening. So, if you look in, I mean, even if you look in more like in neighborhoods where the income level is much higher than another neighborhood where the income level is lower, you're going to see a difference in crime rates and things like that. The crime looks different. It's not like there's no criminals that are rich, but
But in your analogy, not to cut you off, but in your analogy, the neighborhoods have gotten better. The income has gotten better. But in this tribe, it's all the same because everybody got an increase. So the margin of the haves versus have-not, but that hasn't changed. So it's exactly the same.
But it's not about the haves. But that's what I'm saying. It's not about the haves and the have-nots. It's about, I can meet my family's needs and that's okay. It's not because I want what they have. It's because I couldn't meet my family's needs.
Right. But I think a lot of the times, again, this is a rabbit hole we're going down, and I'd like to pull us back up because I do have a couple more things. But
okay.
I think the people that are doing these crimes, there are some people that do crimes because it's exciting. There's some people that do crimes because they're innately evil. There's some people that do crimes because they feel like there's no other way. There's mental health that comes in. So there's a variety of issues. I don't even want to pretend. But what I'm trying to rationalize my brain, and even what I'm hearing you, and I agree with a lot of what you're saying and the fact that those are things to think about. I do not understand, even within this article I was reading, when it said that it would decrease or it decreased addiction and crime, I don't understand how that is a correlation to the fact that we're now giving everybody in the community a set amount of numbers. The other stuff I could understand, the mental health, yeah, there's a little bit less worrying. But for addiction and crime, that's the one I was like, but why does giving more people money decrease that? That's what I'm having a hard time understanding. Okay. So I have two more main points for this, which I think is really fascinating. And then I want to get into a little bit of a discussion with you. So between 1968 and 1974, the U.S. actually performed an experiment giving cash to around 7,500 people across the United States. They gave, the 7,500 people lived in New Jersey, Pennsylvania, Iowa, North Carolina. Now, Seattle and Denver were named. I don't know why Seattle and Denver were named separately, and the other ones are states. And then it also gives Gary, Indiana, which I thought was kind of weird. So I don't know why Seattle, Denver, and Gary were mentioned by city, and the other ones were mentioned by states. But I've never even heard of this. I've never even heard of this experiment that the government did. Now I know I was before my time, but you would think that this would have been mentioned in something. Did you ever hear about anything? I don't even know what this is called. It didn't give a name. It just gave a period and said this was an experiment by the government. Tell
me the years again.
1968 to 1974.
Huh. Okay. What did they do? Like what? Tell me about it.
No, that's literally the only thing that it really said. It just said, when I looked up to said, has this ever existed in the United States? It really was a blur. Again, I didn't go deep dive into any one of these because I just want to make sure I had a breadth of the topic. The only other thing that it mentioned is results of this experiment said that the money provided benefited the recipients, but it modestly reduced the hours that they worked. So as I read that, what I took from that is the money benefited. And again, I don't know how much money was given. I don't know if each of these 7,500 people got $1 million or got $10. I have no idea. But I thought what was interesting is in the results, it said that it benefited the recipients, but it modestly reduced the number of hours they worked. So
they felt like they had to work less.
They worked less, but it wasn't an exorbitant amount. It wasn't like, hey, I've quit my job, I'm not working at all. I don't even, when they say modestly, I take that as, and this is my own mind. If you're working 40 hours a week, suddenly maybe I'm only working, 30, right? Like I don't have to work full time anymore, but I still have to put in something in order to get
25%. Yeah, that makes sense.
But isn't that crazy that the government actually has performed an experiment and kind of tried this thing out?
I'm not shocked. I am a little surprised. I've never heard of it. Apparently, I don't know. It sounds like they thought it was a little successful. I don't know. I'm super curious about that now. Like now I want to deep dive.
Well,
like,
hold on, because I have one more thing for you.
okay.
So, and this is really recent, and this was a 2-year study. So, a universal base income was actually tested in Stockton, California, roughly between the years of 2020 and 2022. I found an article that was probably about halfway in between the 2-year segment, and it said that they gave $500, and this was in the form of debit cards, to 125 residents. And now what they did is they said this is the first time I've seen where there was a prerequisite around income. So this 125 residents that received the $500, and that was a month in these cards, made $46,000 a year or less. And this test that was done in Stockton, California, lasted for 2 years. Like I said, roughly 2020 through 2022. I don't have anything with results. I don't know if they found it to be successful. This is really the only thing that I pulled out of my research, which I thought it was interesting. It's the most current thing that I could find. It was in a specific location. I don't know anything about Stockton, California. I don't know what their population. I don't know what their mean income is. I don't know anything about that. The $500 in debit cards, so it wasn't even cash. It was actually debit cards. I don't know if that means they had to use them like EBT cards and they were restricted around where they could use the money, or if it was like a Visa debit card and it spends like cash, go wherever you want and spend it. But I thought that was interesting.
That is interesting. Who funded that study? Do you have any idea? Or is that too deep dive?
I don't know. And this article was really kind of small. It was found, the source of it was M as in Mary, PR News. And then it was I think it's a subdivision of NPR Radio, because NPR was splashed all over it as well. But the date was, the article was written was March 4th of 2021. So
interesting.
Yeah. And again, I found these by doing like simple Google searches around, the definition of a universal basic income. Have we ever, what countries are looking into that? Have we ever had a UBI here in the United States? And that's kind of where I started getting all of these little tidbits from. So again, more to go and do some deep dive, which is really, really interesting.
Yeah. On a subject I have never thought of seriously before.
Well, yeah. And I didn't know that this was more commonplace. Because I was thinking that in the United States, they would come back and say, nope, we've never had this. It's never been talked about. But the more I was digging, the more I'm realizing this is more of a global concept that I think is getting more and more traction. And that's what I would love to have a conversation with you now about now, Jamie, is, I've shared my research. Of course, that's no surprise to anybody listening. I have my own opinions about it. But yeah, so let's just kind of jump in. So, and I know it's very limited information and it's not a lot of deep dive. So some of this conversation is going to be based around speculation. But do you think, from what you've heard and maybe what you're thinking about, do you think that would be something that could be successful here in the United States, or do you think that's a bad idea?
Oh, well, universal programs often appeal to my liberal blue heart. So typically, like universal healthcare, things like that, when you started talking about universal income, I was like, I don't know. That's not a program that I would have. And then you start telling me about some of these things, and okay, practically, do I think it can work? Probably not. I mean, just given the current political climate, I don't think that it has a snowball's chance in passing anywhere for anything, right? But I definitely could see some benefits in helping close the gap in poverty, between poverty and middle class, and, helping families sustain like a livable wage and meet their families' needs. I mean, it's really interesting. What I don't know is how we would fund programming like that. That would be a big challenge, I think. Those other examples, like on the reservation with the tribe and in not Canada, but in Alaska, those are clearly funded with casino revenues and, oil revenues, right? So it's directly related to something like that. So I don't know. I mean, I don't know how funding would work, but my interest has piqued enough that I'm like, who's talking about that in the United States? Is anyone talking about that? Any politicians talking about that in the United States? And what are their proposals to fund that? Because I think, there might be some value there in making some difference for some families that really are struggling in the current economy.
And where I want to be careful is taking these examples that are very finite and very small subgroup. I think Alaska is the biggest group that I can think of in these examples, because every citizen in Alaska gets that money. Now we're talking about a very small number, dollar amount. But every other example we talked about is a very small subset. So, and even with the Alaska example, it doesn't change the landscape across the country. So for me, when I'm listening to these, I'm like, I want to be careful that we don't take these small little proof of concepts that we're doing and we think that that's going to be applied exactly as is across the entire country. And one of the things I'm coming to is the minimum wage. There's a lot of people that are for raising minimum wage, raise minimum wage. Well, raising minimum wage also raises the cost of living. So now you give somebody more money to live off of. You've now just made them have to pay more to live, because those costs are not just going to stop with the companies that have to pay their employees more now. Those are going to get passed along to the consumers that have to buy their products and services. It goes to the manufacturers who have to make them. It's a ripple effect. So at first, raising minimum wage sounds like it's the right answer to do, and now suddenly is above the poverty line, until you realize all you've done is move the poverty line. So in my mind, if you give everybody a set amount of dollars, what you've done is essence just rechange the poverty line, because now everybody's getting the same amount of money. It doesn't change anybody's lifestyle because everybody's lifestyle was changed. So I just want to be cautious when we're talking and we're hearing these wonderful examples. These were pockets, and really outside of some, this tribe, outside of the state, outside of this town. And I would even argue within this town, so the one that's in Stockton, California, there's only a select 125. So these 125 got a benefit because the world they lived in was not altered because of this.
Well,
so they did get a benefit.
Let's be real here. I don't think we need to be cautious about, because we're not making policy, right? And nobody that's making policy is probably going to be listening to this for the next, 10 years or whatever. But I mean, I don't know. I think, I strongly disagree with your stance on minimum wage, but it's about profits. There is nothing about a house that has changed in the 20 years since it was purchased last and the day that it was sold today, but it's selling for twice as much now as it did back then, right? And yeah, I'm sure there's improvements and things like that have been made. Don't get me wrong. I'm not talking about like it's in a deplorable state or anything, but the amount of increase in cost of things has not kept up. Like that increase is so big that somebody is making some money off of these things, making more money off of them now than they used to. And, when we're talking about minimum wage, I would be interested to see if we could find the cost of the percentage of the cost of living compared to the percentage of the average wage paid compared to the average increase of profits by companies. Because I would imagine, and I think I've seen it in a couple of places that I can't cite right now because I don't, take notes on these things when I see them, but those profits that big companies are making are bigger. So it's not like, they don't have to raise prices as much as you would think they have to raise prices. Maybe we just learn to live on a budget across the board, not just poor people who are trying to put food on their table for their kids.
Well, but I think that's kind of a bleeding heart take on it, that
Mahlon, really?
We can't ignore the fact that just because raising minimum wage, giving somebody a universal base income, this is my concern. This is where I'm at, is everybody should be able to have food on their table. No question. The lower class, the homeless, the down and out, it's all horrible. But nowhere has it ever helped raising minimum wage. Maybe short term, but not long term. And so I just fear that taking what we do know from raising minimum wage and giving assistance to people, and making those programs that are in that were created for the purpose of giving assistance and not a lifestyle, has all contributed to the fact that we are just moving that poverty line up. So it doesn't really give any kind of lift. And this is the same thing. This universal base income, that's one of my main concerns is, fine, everybody starts getting $5,000 a year. Well, you've just raised the poverty line. Nobody's really getting a benefit from it because our current state is just all been elevated by that number that they're going to be giving us. So I agree with you. We're not creating policy. People that are listening that make the policy probably are not going to listen to this podcast. But that doesn't matter, because to me, it's like sharing this idea, which I think is really important to say, we've got to start looking at what would help, not just a Band-Aid to say, hey, let's give everybody some more money because that will make their problems a lot less painful. And I don't see it happening.
Well,
we also live in
go ahead.
A country. I said we also live in a country where it's capitalism. So people are going to make money. If you have goods and services and you're going to sell them and people are going to pay the price for them, then you're going to get rich off of it. And that's our economy.
Yes. I feel like this is like crossing over of so many conversations that we've had before, because I'm like, oh, capitalism is the savior of the country, right? Well, it's not. Fantastic. It's not a savior.
It's just. I don't think it's the evil that a lot of people put in stock. I don't think people are. I don't think we have homeless people because we're a capitalistic society. I don't think there's people that are lower income families because we live in a capitalistic society. I don't think it's the devil either.
Well, that's exactly why we have that, because the ones that have the most keep making the most, and the ones that have the least keep making less and less, so that those ones that have the most can have more and more.
Well, they're not getting it from the people that have the least because they don't have enough to buy it then. I mean, for your own argument to work, you'd have to say the people that have the least have enough to keep buying the goods and services that are keeping them poor, which I don't see that happening.
Yeah, I think you and I are going to have to agree to disagree on that point, my friend, because
I think this is a future topic. Okay, one last thing, because I know you touched on this, and I think this is really interesting.
Okay.
Again, shout out to my mom, who's always gave me the best advice, which is there's nothing in life that's for free. So this costs money, and I think you touched on it. How do we fund something like this? So here's what I did, which I thought was kind of interesting. In my research, I just said, what would be the cost? And so roughly, and I took average here, there's 300 million Americans. Let's just say everybody gets $10,000 a year. And now that's the high end. I'm going to say that's high because nowhere in my examples did we even get close to 10,000. But here in America, we do things bigger and better, right? Like, let's go big or go home. So I gave everyone $10,000. Yeah, that's right. Equal opportunists. So everybody gets $10,000 a year. Do you know how much money that translates into a year that this would cost? Just to give everybody...
I don't even want to think about it. I can't even imagine.
$3 trillion a year.
See, the word trillion doesn't even compute for me. Like thousands, hundred thousands, millions, billions. After that, my brain stops functioning and I'm like, that it's made up. That is a fake word. Trillion, kabillion, bajillion, right? It's a fake word.
Right. Well, so it's so high, it's so unattainable. I mean, you say the word trillion. I'm grappling with. I'm hoping by the time I retire that I might be close to a millionaire. And now you're talking beyond billion into trillions, and that's just a year. You do that for 10 years. That's between 30 and 40 trillion dollars that would need to be paid to help fund everybody in the United States getting $10,000 a year, and that does not account for the population increase. So in 10 years from now, we might have 350 million Americans that would need that.
Well,
10,000.
You also think, though, that's the entire population, right? I don't know that
on average.
I don't know that Bill Gates is going to be like, yeah, give me my extra $10,000 a year, right? He's got enough that he's donating to different initiatives that are helping people. So, I mean, I think that's kind of the basis of most of the social programs we have in this country, is the ones that need it are the ones that qualify for it. So I can't imagine that it would actually cost that much, depending upon where they put that.
You would say the majority of the people are middle class to lower class, right? Like, we don't have 150 million billionaires in the United States.
No.
So the ones that qualify would probably be the majority, although probably not the full 300 million. I'd agree with that.
Well, yeah. And I think if something like that, let's say that by some measure of miraculous things happened and that were something that were looked at as a possibility, I think it would, I don't even know that middle class is where it needs to go. That needs to go to the families that cannot feed their kids. You know what I'm saying? That needs to go to the families that are desperate for opportunities, who don't live in areas where they can make a living wage, don't have access to education to make, you know what I'm saying? Like, I think that would be my assumption in what our policy would do.
I think on paper, nobody can argue that. I can't even argue that. But I think in practice, we don't see that happening even with the programs that we have today.
That is what happens.
And again,
today, in practice.
And that's not something that we need to go down the road right now. Again, future episode. But
maybe.
I just think this has tentacles that are really interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I do want to go back through and I do want to get deeper dive. So I think this might be, I'm going to call this a follow-up. I know we've had several listeners come and request other follow-ups to some of our other topics. I think I want to bring this back as a follow-up because I want to learn a little bit more and I want to follow it. And we haven't done a lot of political conversation here on our podcast intentionally. We all know what next year is going to be. So maybe this is something that we can watch to see maybe this political landscape next year. Maybe this is something that gets touched on. It'd be kind of fun to see if it is.
You did not say anything about previewing a whole bunch of Politico things, but I mean, maybe. I guess part of it for
Jamie's like, hey, wait a minute. But that's true. Yes, let's do that.
No. No, but seriously, I'm cool with a follow-up. But I mean, part of it is like, let's start the conversation and then learn what we need to know. You know what I'm saying? And I don't know that this is a big hot button topic in this country at this point. I haven't heard about it even on the big talking head shows where they're making up all kinds of stuff. So I don't know. I guess I don't know how vitally important it is for me to go and learn a whole bunch more about this. Although I am super interested in the historical piece of the one in the late 60s and early 70s. That is kind of fascinating.
Yeah, for me, I don't need it to be popular to be interesting enough for me to research. So I think
True.
Let's maybe we make it popular. Popularity doesn't always equal the most important things. Well, for me.
No, but I'm saying as far as like what's going to impact me in the next 6 to 9 months, I don't know that this is one of those things. Out of curiosity, I definitely want to go back and look at the late 60s and early 70s initiative in the United States. That's fascinating.
And maybe it doesn't, or maybe it does. All I'm saying is I think I would like to watch, because if this does make an appearance somewhere in next year's discussions, as we all know they're coming.
We did it first.
I just think it'd be fascinating.
We did it first.
Yeah, I don't even want to take credit because here we are talking about something that I thought was brand new. And there's studies going back as far as what do we say? Like 1968. So yeah, this is not a new concept. I know, me neither. I was like, what do you mean there's what? 3 decades ago, 4 decades, 50 years ago? What?
Well,
it's crazy.
Mahlon, we will live to disagree another day. So I'm sure we can, if we feel if we feel the need to come back to it, we can. But I think you're wrong. So anyway, that is I just lost my train of thought completely. But thanks for bringing the information.
That's what happens.
That's a lot of research.
Well, and it's, again, I could spend more time. I mean, there's so many more questions I want to ask. But yeah, I think for today's conversation to kind of get the ball rolling, I thought this was, at least it's enough to get your brain working to go, could we make something like this work? Would we want to? I don't know.
Yeah, it's thought provoking for sure. And I don't know. Blame Canada. So I'm just kidding. Wasn't that, what show was that on? It was South Park, wasn't it? Blame Canada.
How tolerant of you, Jamie.
No, I love Canada. I really want to try, what is that? Like poutine. I see it all over my TikTok pages, like all of the Canadians eating their poutine. I really want to try it. So
have you never had poutine?
I've never had poutine. I've never even heard of it until TikTok.
Next time you come visit, we have a restaurant that serves amazing. It's so good.
See, is it the same though? Because I'm thinking, you go to Wisconsin for cheese, you go to the Canadians for poutine, right?
Well, I wouldn't go to Canada for poutine. I'd go to
I have nothing better to do on a random Tuesday.
France.
Let's go to Canada.
I'd go to France.
For poutine. Okay.
Yeah.
Anyway, this has been a great conversation, Mahlon, and thanks for bringing that information. And it was good. Can you hear Cooper in the background?
Yeah, I can.
He's telling me it's time to be done, Jamie. It's time to be done. Let me outside, Mama.
All right. Well, until next time, have a good one.
See you later. This podcast was recorded and edited by Jamie and Mahlon. Music by Famous Cats. If you have a topic you'd like us to discuss, please email us at roundtablemindset@gmail.com. Text or call us at 402-819-8999 or join the conversation on Facebook at Roundtable Mindset Podcast.
And never miss a new episode by making sure you like, subscribe, and share wherever you listen to podcasts. Thanks for being our guest today. See you next time at the Roundtable. And remember, your opinions and perspectives matter and are appreciated, but might not always be shared by others, and that's okay.